You have a net worth of $10 million, which is...
Yeah, that's wrong. It's way more than that.
I was going to say, which if correct would make you a significantly wealthy individual. So I was going to ask, is that true? And if so, has it changed you in any way?
It's a complex management problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with money, and it's difficult to manage. It's easy to squander money. It's easy to misuse it. Has it changed me? The wealth?
Yeah.
Not much.
You as a person?
Not really.
No.
I mean, I wasn't economically uncomfortable to begin with. I had 3 jobs, and they all paid reasonably well. So I worked as a professor, and I had a decent salary as a professor, upper middle class salary. And I had a clinical practice, and I have a business. And so we were already comfortable, about as comfortable as money can make you. It opens up a whole different realm of opportunity. And so that's a plus. That's also been, and I hope in 3 years to have a lot more money than I do have. I've said right from the beginning, unashamedly, that I'm an evil capitalist. And so it's fine with me that that's happening. I'm not doing this for the money, but every single business enterprise I operate, and I operate a lot of them, are for profit, because it's an impetus to efficiency and care to have to produce products that are marketable. And so I regard it as a sign of moral virtue rather than the opposite. That assumes that you're trading fair and playing fair. But I am trading fair and playing fair. So I am thrilled about it. And I have a bunch of business ventures well-formed and rolling out, including a writing app called Essay.app, which I hope will teach millions of people to write and think. And if it is spectacularly financially successful, then we'll expand it and develop it, and so much the better. And so, yeah. And of course, it gives me also a certain degree of autonomy, which I already had that because I had, my clinical practice, and although that was really taken away from me, as essentially was my academic job, but they didn't get my business. So I wasn't cancelable on all fronts, just 2 out of 3, but that wasn't enough.
But how did they take your clinical practice away from you?
Oh, well, the amount of attention that my work attracted and the political tension around it became so intense that, number one, I didn't have the mental space to concentrate 100% on my clients' concerns.
Right.
And that's unforgivable. When you're doing therapy, in that hour, you have to be open and attentive in a way that prioritizes the communication, verbal and nonverbal, of the people you're dealing with, partly because you're dealing with life and death issues generally. There's no time for distraction. And I was able generally to concentrate without distraction on my clients' concerns. But when everything blew up around me, that became impossible. So I couldn't offer the services properly or be available off hours when I needed to be available. And so that isn't exactly taken away, let's say. But
I understand.
But the political conflict made it impossible to consider. But also the professional colleges have been weaponized. And so it's possible to take a complaint out against me. Anyone in the world can take a complaint out against me for any reason whatsoever, whether they were my client or not. And then the college launches an investigation. That's a 6-month process. They say the process is the punishment, and that requires legal defense on my part. And most of the time I have 2 or 3 of those going on at the same time.
Right.
And so that's also made things practically impossible.
I see.
And the same thing in some real sense happened at the university. There's no way that I didn't know what to do with my university career because I wasn't fired, although all the evidence was pointing to the fact that my firing was the goal. I was able to stop that in its tracks by being strategic and careful. And then I became very ill for a variety of reasons, which I still don't precisely understand. And when I started to recover in October, I started to think through whether or not, or in August, I guess, I started to think through whether or not I could actually go back to the university, because I was on a leave of absence back as a full-time researcher and professor. And I realized that, well, that was just impossible. None of my graduate students are going to get academic jobs. The mere fact that they're associated with me in any way whatsoever will absolutely disqualify them from any academic job for the rest of their lives.
Really?
Well, look, if you're going up for a professorship, say at a decent university, research-oriented university, there's probably 200 applicants for a given entry-level position. And so the issue that is before the hiring committee is who to say no to, and the answer is 99.5% of the applicants. And so any reason to say no is a reason, and certainly any whiff of scandal, that's part of that effectiveness of the cancel culture. Any whiff of scandal is enough to put you in the reject pile, even if, no matter what the scandal is, but also that it's a political scandal and that I'm hypothetically allied with the right in today's academic climates. Like, that's just a non-starter, my students. So how can I have graduate students under those conditions? And there's no bloody way to get a grant in Canada. Now you have to write a diversity, inclusivity, and equity statement. And I wouldn't write one of those if you put a gun to my head.
No.
So that's a non-starter. And well, and there's all sorts of other reasons, like many other reasons.